Happy Friday, everybody. Today we're looking at the Atlas Masterline 25,000 gallon tank cars. Okay, still working out the light placement and scene setup for the new kind of review area here, so bear with me while this kind of comes together. But as we jump into this review, I had asked if anybody has run into any reliability issues with these and if they had any fixes for them, and I kind of didn't get much of an answer. But the one thing that tends to always pop up on any of my rolling stock reviews is, well, just body mount your couplers, do a truck replacement, and add weight. That seems to kind of be the common consensus amongst everybody who has an opinion, and honestly, I don't like any of those answers. The fact of the matter is the modern rolling stock prices are just outrageously high, and in my opinion, for the money you're spending on these things, you should be able to put them on your layout and use them as you see fit, and they should be perfectly reliable. It's not like you're picking up budget rolling stock for $5 to $10 anymore. These are anywhere from $30 to $40 a piece, and for that kind of price, I shouldn't have to do anything to them to make them reliable. So I put a good bit of time into trying to figure out what the issue was with these particular cars. Now, I got these from a friend for a really good discounted price because he was having reliability issues, fully expecting that I would have to do a microtrans conversion like I did to one of my older runs of these cars. And I was considering just doing that, but I really wanted to take some time and try to figure out what is actually going on with these cars, because not only did I have problems with these, but I've had problems with the older runs of these in the past. So I'm going to go over that, and then we're going to talk about the things that I really like about these newer run Atlases and what I really wish they would do to make these more of a price competitive option, in my opinion. So actually, I think maybe we will just take a look at these up close first, go over the things I like, and then we'll discuss what I may have figured out on the coupler issue. These newer release Atlas 25,000 gallon tank cars are a very large step up in quality, in my opinion, over the old ones, and I do have to say that I rather like the way they look. Not only are the bars down here for adding some rigidity to the tank car, I'm not sure, I think they call them torsion bars. They're much stronger on these and much better attached than the old ones. I'll bring one down here in a second so you can see what tends to happen. So yeah, much sturdier. The ladders are better attached, and the wire is much thinner and more refined. And that leads us to the actual upper handrails themselves. Very thin, very delicate, although, but very scale hand railing up here, as well as the decks have a good mesh to them. They're nice and crisp, excellent mold design. You will have to excuse the dust. Like I say, I have a very busy layout. I keep my rolling stock working. I want to make sure it's reliable so I get hours on it. So sorry that they're dusty, but that's just the way it is to have quality reviews. The handrails here at the end are nice and thin as well and look really nice. All the added detail is nice and crisp. The brake wheel looks good. The walkways, I'm not sure if you can see it, but they also have a nice pattern to them. And the trucks themselves have a nice look. However, the wheels, in my opinion, Atlas just doesn't make the nicest wheels. I will say, though, that they do roll nice and smooth and freely, and they have a decent sound when you do roll them. The all tank cars, for the most part, have kind of a seam on them where they come together. It does blend in rather well on this. It's hard to see if you're not looking for it, so that's a pretty nice feature of these. All the decals on all of them look great. And there is some added, let me just get this up here. Some added detail on the bottom. Not much, but it is a tank car. And we will quickly just roll one of my other ones I got here in frame. Nice looking as well. And that one back there also is relatively nice looking. Let's go ahead and grab one of the old ones, bring it into view here. This is a older release, and you can see, although much sturdier, much larger handrails, and the ladder looks much less plasticky on these new ones. Also, you can see just unloading and loading, into my storage area. The torsion bars down here tend to get bent up and broken off and end up just looking terrible after a short period of time. And that's not the only one I have. Here's another one that I have weathered up. And it is same ordeal. It ends up getting beat up and jankified. So yeah, honestly, I really think they did quite a bit of upgrades. They do look nice, and if I can get the coupler issue figured out, they'll be really nice pieces of rolling stock. But let's go ahead and talk about what I found and what might be the issue that I'm coming up with here. So we're back out here at the wide angle, and I did hours worth of testing on these, and I tried to catch it when they derail and decouple, and I think I finally came to the conclusion of what was particularly going on, and I originally thought I had it figured out. Some of these cars, and I left this one that way in particular, I'm just going to swap views here. The MU hose down here, or the brake hose, excuse me, hangs a little bit low, and I ended up removing it from one of my trucks just to see if that was the issue that was causing the decoupling and the derailment. After quite a bit of testing, I pretty much concluded that yes, the low-hanging brake hoses can be a problem. Just bend them up a little bit, but it's not actually the reason why they were decoupling and occasionally derailing. So what I ended up coming up with, and I talked to the guy that I picked these up from, and I had to ask him a question. And I think what it comes down to is the maximum grade that your layout has. And I have mentioned several times that I have a relatively aggressive grade, about 2.6% in some areas. And the guy that I picked these up, he has a max grade of about 2.25. And I believe that it is the grade that is causing the problem. And I caught it decoupling a couple times visually, and it generally happened when I had either a dip in my rail or the transition from my grade onto the flat. And what it looked like was happening is as it would go through the transition, the coupler would move down like so. And let's just pause and zoom in there. So as it would go through the transition, it doesn't take much for the coupler to shift down a little bit. Now, that doesn't look like much when there's no load behind it, but when you start to put a load and it shifts like that, it'll kind of get that pop like that right there. And when that pop happens, it tends to shift a little bit more. And to the best of my ability, I can't make it happen. I can't recreate it perfectly, but that seems to be what's going on. With little to no load, there's not enough friction on the coupler, and they tend to slide smoothly with one another and work properly. But when you have a decent sized load behind the train, and you're actually putting pressure on the couplers, and you move through that transition, it tends to kind of be a jerky motion like that, and that's just enough to get them to decouple. I tried to get the same thing to happen with microtrains couplers, and I think I determined that the microtrains couplers themselves are just a little bit taller and have a little bit smoother a finish. When interfaced with one another, they do the same thing. They move up and down, but they don't pop and move up and down in a that rapid fashion. And that, I think, is what is actually causing that derailment. Also, if I can do that again, and that pop happens, of course, there it goes, it kind of tends to lift up a little bit on that front wheel there, and that would happen occasionally. And then as you come around and catch a turnout or whatever, it'll derail and totally mess up your day. But that's what I think is happening with these. I'm pretty sure it's the Accumate couplers interfacing with one another. So it's my opinion that people that have good luck with these probably don't have aggressive grades, and that's more than likely what's going on here. When on the flats, pulling heavy loads, I cannot make these things decouple. They hold really well. Also, I have one section of grade that's nice and smooth and one section of the grade that has a little bit of up and downness to it. The nice and smooth grade, I've never had a decoupling issue on. On the other side of it, where I have a little bit of up and down along with the grade, I have seen those decouplings. So it's probably a bad track laying situation. Although my microtrains couplers work flawlessly through this and I don't have that issue. So it might be a question of how comfortable are you with your track laying work. So I don't know if I can totally fault Atlas for this, but honestly, I think the microtrains coupler is just a better design than the Accumate. So with that said, let's jump into price to performance. The fact of the matter is, I don't think the couplers work as well as microtrains. So for me, knowing that I have steep grades and issues with up and down movement, I can't purchase these for full, going price, because I know that I'm going to have to do some sort of conversion. And these were released with like a $30 MSRP, so they're probably being sold for the $22 to $25 range. The next run of these coming out, which I believe will be built basically the same, just with different road names, road numbers, that type of stuff, they're looking at $36 MSRP, so they're probably going to be sold across the counter for $30 new. That's a big asking price for something that you're probably going to have to do a coupler, or at the very least, probably a truck swap on. I'm kind of torn on what to do here, because they are excellent looking pieces of rolling stock. And if you have a relatively flat layout, I'm confident that they will run really good. Matter of fact, being pushed and pulled through turnouts, these things have been flawless. Like I said, you had to make sure that your airline hoses are bent up a little bit. I had a couple of these that they were hanging a little bit low. Really not that big a deal. Common maintenance thing. Just make sure they're at the proper height and they run through turnouts just fine. Even with a significant load in front of them, they can be pushed through turnouts and they don't derail too easily. There is a lot of swing in the Accumate couplers, so that probably helps with that. So yeah, I guess I would recommend for someone with a flatter layout, these would be awesome pieces of rolling stock. But if you have any sort of grade that you have to deal with on your layout, I can't recommend these to you. You're going to have to spend more money to make them usable pieces of rolling stock. And honestly, the microtrains tank cars are similarly priced. They look similar and they just function better. So in that case, I'd probably just push you towards the microtrains ones. But hopefully I will get a chance to take a look at some of the newer release Atlas ones when they come out. I'm really trying to give Atlas a few more chances. I've had some issues with their stuff in the past. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on these. They are really nice looking, so if you get a flat layout, give them a try. They're great. Otherwise, I'd stick to microtrains. All right, I'll see you this Sunday for the review. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Have a good week. Bye now.